Tajin had walked through the same broken streets for so many years that he could find his way in complete darkness. The ruins of Seoul did not scare him anymore. The empty buildings, the fallen towers, the silence that hung over everything like a heavy blanket, these were simply the world he knew. 20 years had passed since the day when everything changed. 20 years since the sun sent out a burst of energy so powerful that it destroyed every machine, every computer, every piece of technology on Earth in just a few hours. That was the day people called the extinction event, though not many humans had actually gone extinct. Instead, they had simply lost everything and had to learn to survive like their ancestors did centuries ago. Tajin was different from most people. While other survivors had moved to underground caves or small farms far away from cities, he had stayed in Seoul. He came to the ruins almost every day, searching through the broken buildings for anything useful. He found metals that could be shaped into tools, old books that still had knowledge in them, and sometimes items that he did not even recognize but kept anyway. His small outpost was hidden deep in one of the old subway tunnels. It was small, but safe, and it had enough supplies to keep him alive. Some people thought Taijun was crazy for staying in the dead city, but he believed that one day they might need the things he was collecting. He believed that survival meant more than just staying alive. It meant remembering who humans used to be. On this particular day, the sky was gray and cold. Taijin moved through the streets with his collection bag, his eyes always alert for something new or valuable. His boots made soft sounds on the broken concrete. The wind whispered through the empty windows of the tall buildings. He had been walking for 3 hours when he heard something that made him stop completely. He froze in place, his heart suddenly beating faster. It was the sound of a machine. In a world without machines, this sound was impossible. It was a low, humming noise, steady and clear, like nothing Taijun had heard in 20 years. He closed his eyes and listened carefully, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. His mind raced. Was this real? Was he imagining it? Slowly, he began to walk toward the sound. His hand went down to the knife at his side, not because he felt danger exactly, but because unknown things required caution. The sound grew louder as he walked deeper into the ruins of the central district. It seemed to be coming from beneath the old streets, from somewhere underground. Taijin knew these areas well. There was a collapsed building not far from here, one with stairs leading down into darkness. He had always avoided going too deep because the structure was unstable, but the sound was pulling him forward. His curiosity was stronger than his caution. When he reached the collapsed building, the humming sound was very loud now. Taijin climbed carefully over the broken concrete and steel beams, moving slowly to avoid bringing the whole structure down on himself. As he went deeper, the darkness grew, but there was something strange. The air felt warmer here, and he could see a faint glow coming from far below. The glow was blue and silver, colors that did not exist in the natural world of broken stones and dirt. Taijin descended the last flight of stairs carefully. His eyes were adjusting to the light. As he reached the bottom, he saw something that took his breath away. In the basement of the old building, sitting in the middle of the empty space, was a machine like nothing he had ever seen. It was shaped like a metal egg standing on its side, about as tall as 3 people stacked on top of each other. Its surface shimmered with light, and strange symbols were moving across it like living things. The humming sound was coming from deep inside this impossible machine. Taijin stood very still, watching. His mind was trying to understand what he was seeing. This was not from Earth. This could not be from Earth. After 20 years of no technology, no electricity, no machines, here was something completely different, something advanced beyond anything humans had ever made, even before the extinction event. Then the machine changed. A line appeared on its side and grew wider and wider. Light poured out from inside. Taijin stepped back, ready to run, but he was frozen by curiosity and shock. A doorway opened in the side of the machine. Cool air flowed out, and he heard something mechanical humming even louder. Then a figure emerged from the light. It was a woman. At least she had a woman's shape and face, but she was not human. Her skin shimmered with a soft blue color that seemed to move like water in moonlight. Her eyes were large and bright, shining with intelligence that Taijin could feel even from a distance. Her hair was long and silver, and her body was covered in a suit made of material that seemed to be alive, changing colors from blue to purple to white as she moved. Everything about her was strange and beautiful and impossible. The woman stepped out of the machine and looked around the basement slowly. Then her eyes found Taijin. She stopped moving completely. For a moment, there was no sound except the soft humming of the machine behind her. The woman's expression changed. Her bright eyes grew wider. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at Taijin as if she was seeing something that did not make sense. Then she took a slow breath, and words came out of her mouth. The words were not English, and they were not Korean. They were sounds that Taijin should not have been able to understand. Yet somehow they entered his mind like thoughts that were not his own. He heard her voice inside his head, clear and shocked and full of emotion. "This is impossible," she said. "You are alive." Taijin did not know what to say. The woman continued to stare at him with that expression of shock and confusion and something else, something that looked like sadness. She slowly took a step toward him, and Taijin could see her more clearly now. She was very beautiful in an alien way, with features that seemed both familiar and completely strange at the same time. There were tears forming in her bright eyes, tears that sparkled like small stars. "This is impossible," she said again, and this time her voice carried so much emotion that Taijin felt it in his chest. "You should not exist. You should have been gone for 300 years. But you are here. You are alive. How is this possible?" Taijin took a step forward slowly. He did not understand what she was saying, but he understood that something huge had just happened. The world he thought he knew, the broken earth with its ruined cities and surviving humans, was suddenly much larger and more complicated. And this woman, this impossible woman from a machine in the sky, had come to tell him something that would change everything. "I do not know," Taijin said quietly, "but I am alive, and I think you need to explain to me what you are and where you come from." The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, and she said, "My name is Hana, and I have come from very far away. We have much to talk about, human, much more than you could ever imagine." Hana led Taijin to the machine, or ship, as she called it. Inside, everything was smooth and bright and filled with soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. There were strange devices everywhere, and symbols glowed on surfaces like windows into other worlds. Taijin felt like he had stepped into a dream. The air was warm and clean, warmer and cleaner than anything he had known in 20 years. He wanted to touch everything but was afraid to break it. Hana moved through the ship with ease, her fingers touching controls and surfaces without appearing to do anything, yet things happened. A chair grew out of the floor for him to sit on. Pictures and words appeared in the air in front of him. His mind was overwhelmed, but he tried to stay calm. He had survived 20 years of hardship. He could survive this too. "First," Hana said, her voice still echoing strangely in his mind, "you need to know that you are not supposed to be alive. According to every record we have, every data source we can access, your species, humans, have been extinct for 327 years. Taijin did not understand. "What do you mean extinct? We are here. I am here. There are thousands of us still alive on Earth." Hana shook her head. "You do not understand. I am from the Archivists. We are an organization that travels the galaxy and records information about all intelligent life. We document everything. We have records of thousands of civilizations across hundreds of worlds. And we have very clear records of Earth. We know when your species developed language. We know when you built your first cities. We know when you reached the technology level to leave your planet. But we also have very clear records of your extinction. 327 years ago, your species was wiped out. According to our data, there is no possible way you could be standing in front of me right now. Tajan thought about this. He had never heard of anything like the Archivists or other worlds. The world he knew was broken and small and only contained humans struggling to survive. But he was learning that the world was much bigger than he had ever imagined. Maybe your records are wrong, he said carefully. Maybe you made a mistake. We do not make mistakes, Hana said. But there was uncertainty in her voice now. But you are right that something is wrong. Something does not match. Let me take you to the settlements. Let me see if this is possible. Let me talk to more humans. Then I will have answers. Taejun agreed. He led Hana through the tunnels to the main settlement where most of the humans in Seoul lived. As they walked, Hana asked him questions about the last 20 years. She wanted to know about the extinction event, about the solar flare, about how humans had survived without technology. She listened carefully to every word, her bright eyes never leaving his face. When they arrived at the settlement, people came out of their homes. They were shocked to see Taejun with this strange, shimmering woman. They pointed and whispered and held their children close. But Minho, the oldest and wisest person in the settlement, stepped forward. He was very old, with white hair and a walking stick made from a smooth piece of metal. He looked at Hana with the calm expression of someone who had seen many strange things. "Welcome," Minho said. "I do not know what you are or where you come from. But Taejun brought you here with respect, so we will treat you with respect. I am Minho. This is our home." Hana bowed her head slightly. "I am Hana. I am a record keeper for the Archivists. I have come from a very far place, and I have found something that my people thought was impossible." Minho invited Hana to sit and share food. It was a small meal, some vegetables they had grown underground, some dried fish, some water. But Hana accepted it with gratitude. As she ate, she explained more about her people and how they traveled between worlds in ships like the one hidden beneath the city. She explained that there were thousands of intelligent species living on different planets, that they had technology that seemed like magic, that they had been watching Earth for a very long time. Then she used her ship's tools to scan the humans. She took small samples of their blood and skin. She examined their genes. She ran her tests through her equipment over and over again, and each time her confusion grew deeper. Finally, she turned to Minho and Taejun and said something that changed everything. "I have found the answer," she said. "But it is something I barely understand myself. 300 years ago, there was a temporal anomaly near Earth. This is a fold in space and time itself. Your planet and all the humans on it became trapped inside this fold. To the rest of the universe, Earth disappeared. We thought you had been destroyed, but you were not destroyed. You were simply removed from normal time." A young woman named Ji-woo, who worked in the underground gardens, spoke up. "What does that mean? We are removed from time?" "It means," Hana explained carefully, "that while 300 years passed in the rest of the galaxy, only 20 years have passed here. Earth became isolated. It was cut off from everything. The people of the galaxy watched your star and saw nothing. We thought you were gone forever, but you were simply trapped in a bubble of slowed time, living your lives at a different speed than the rest of the universe." Minho closed his eyes and was quiet for a long moment. When he opened them again, he said, "If this is true, then everything we thought we knew is wrong." "Everything has changed." "Yes," Hana said, "but there is something more. Something that makes this even more complicated. This temporal anomaly was not natural. Someone created it deliberately. Someone trapped your entire species on purpose. And now it is beginning to fail. My instruments show that the fold is becoming unstable. In a few months, perhaps less, it will collapse completely. And when it does, all of you will be exposed to the full power of time that has been held back for 300 years. Earth and everyone on it will simply cease to be. The settlement went silent. Outside, people could hear the wind in the tunnels. Inside, they were hearing that their entire world was about to end. Tajan looked at Hana and asked the question that was forming in every mind in the room. Is there any way to stop it? Can we be saved? Hana looked at him for a long time before answering. Yes, she finally said. There is a way, but it is complicated, and it will require the Archivist's High Council to approve it. We will need to evacuate all of you from Earth before the temporal fold collapses. But there are some people in the Council who believe that humanity is too dangerous. There are people who trapped you here in the first place, and they may not want to save you now. The news spread through all the human settlements on Earth like water flowing through cracks in stone. The extinction event that had happened 20 years ago was not an accident. Earth's isolation was not natural. Humanity had not simply survived a disaster. They had been deliberately trapped by an alien force. And now that trap was breaking, and they had perhaps 3 months to escape or die. Taijin stood in the main chamber of the settlement and watched as Minho called for a gathering of representatives from every human community still alive. They came from the underground farms in the mountains. They came from the coastal settlements that fished the cold seas. They came from the hidden communities in the forests where people had learned to live without any technology at all. Over 100 representatives gathered, and they all had questions that needed answers. Minho explained what Hana had told them. He spoke about the temporal fold and the archivists. He spoke about the danger and about the possibility of escape. He told the people that they would need to make a choice. They could try to hide and hope the fold would somehow not collapse, or they could trust this alien woman and try to leave their world forever. The decision would not be easy. Many people were angry. They had survived 20 years of hardship. They had built new communities and learned new ways to live. They did not want to abandon Earth, but others understood that they had no choice. Earth was their home, but Earth was dying. If they stayed, they would die with it. Hana activated her ship's communication system and sent a message to the Archivist's High Council. She told them about discovering humanity alive. She told them about the temporal fold becoming unstable. She asked them for permission to evacuate the humans and bring them to the network of protected worlds where other species lived. But she warned Minho and Taijin that the council would not respond quickly. They would need to debate and argue. They would need to vote. And some members would want to let Earth perish. While they waited for the council's response, Taijin became Hana's guide. He showed her the ruins of old human civilization. He took her to libraries where books still survived. He showed her artwork that humans had created and music that people still played on simple instruments made from wood and bone. He wanted her to understand that humanity was not just a species of violence and conquest. Humans also created beauty. They also loved and cared for each other. They also dreamed of better things. Hana listened carefully. She recorded everything. She asked Taijin why he thought humans were worth saving. It was a question that made Taijin think deeply. He thought about his life, about the people he knew, about everything humans had done to survive and maintain their dignity despite impossible circumstances. Because, Taijin finally said, humans never give up. Even when everything is taken from us, even when we lose all our technology and all our comfort, we still try to live and grow and care for each other. We still create art and music even though we are hungry. We still tell stories even though we should be despairing. We are stubborn. We are foolish sometimes. But we are also beautiful. That is what makes us worth saving." Hannah was quiet for a long time after he said this. Then she told him something. She told him that the Archivists' Council had been formed 300 years ago because of humans. She said that before the temporal fold was created, humanity had been a powerful species. Humans had technology that could destroy entire worlds. Humans had begun to spread through space, and they had taken resources from other species without asking permission. There had been wars. There had been destruction. The Archivists' Council had decided that humanity was too dangerous and too aggressive, so they had trapped Earth in time to stop human expansion. "But now I think they were wrong," Hannah said. "I think that people can change. I think that stopping you from changing by trapping you was more wrong than anything you might have done. And if there is any hope for your species now, it is in people like you and Minho and Jiwoo who have learned to survive without making war on each other." Days passed. The council did not respond immediately. Hannah explained that space was vast and that messages between worlds could take a long time to travel. But finally, communication came. The council had received her report. They had divided into arguments. Some wanted to save humanity. Others wanted to let them perish as they had been allowed to perish before. There would be a trial. Humans would need to come to the council and defend their right to survive. They would need to convince the archivists that humanity was worth saving. Minho called another gathering. He explained that they needed to send representatives to meet the High Council. It was dangerous. It was uncertain. But it was also the only hope they had. He asked who would go. Taejin immediately volunteered. He was young and strong and could speak well. Jiwoo also volunteered. She was intelligent and could explain how humans had survived and created food without machines. They needed one more person. A young engineer named Dae-sung stepped forward. He had worked to preserve human knowledge and had even created simple machines using only basic materials. He wanted to show the council that humans could build and create, not just destroy. And Hannah would go with them. She would use her position as a record keeper to argue that humanity deserved a second chance. She would tell the council that she had met a human named Taejin, who had proved that humans possessed wisdom and honor, and the capacity to change. The night before they were supposed to leave Earth forever, Taejin climbed to the highest point of the ruins, where he could see the stars. The sky was clear and cold. He looked at the stars that humans had always wondered about, and now he knew that behind those stars were worlds and people and civilizations. He thought about his parents who had died in the first years after the extinction event. He thought about all the humans who would never see what he was about to see. He felt scared and sad and excited all at the same time. Tomorrow, his world would change. Tomorrow, he would leave Earth and face a council of alien species who might judge that his people were not worth saving. Tomorrow, everything would be different. But tonight, he stood under the stars, and he was alive, and he was grateful for that, even though he did not know what the future would bring. Taejin had never imagined that he could feel so many emotions at the same time. As Hannah's ship rose above the Earth, carrying him, Jiwoo, Dae-sung, and Minho toward a space station that orbited their planet, he experienced fear and wonder and awe, all mixing together in his chest. He watched through the transparent wall of the ship as Earth became smaller and smaller below them. He could see the brown continents and the blue oceans. He could see clouds swirling around the atmosphere. He could see the place where he had spent his entire life becoming just a small sphere of rock and water hanging in darkness. "It is beautiful," Minho said quietly, standing beside him. The old man's eyes were filled with tears. "I never thought I would see our world from above. I never thought it would look so small and fragile." The ship continued to climb. Around them, space became darker and darker. Stars began to appear, millions of them, spreading across the black like diamonds on endless velvet. Taejin had never seen so many stars from Earth because the light of day always hid them. But here in space, away from the planet, the stars were everywhere. It was the most beautiful and the most terrifying sight he had ever witnessed. Then Hana called them to look forward. Ahead of them, growing larger as they approached, was the space station. It was enormous. It was like a city made of metal and light, spinning slowly against the background of space. Multiple towers extended from a central hub. Lights of many different colors lit up various sections. Ships of many different shapes and sizes were docked at various ports. Taejun's mind could barely process what he was seeing. This station was bigger than Seoul. It was bigger than most of the cities that used to exist on Earth before the extinction event. "Welcome to the Central Archive," Hana said. "This is where the council meets. This is where the records of thousands of species are kept. And this is where your fate will be decided." As they entered the station, Taejun realized that he was about to meet beings that were not human. He had seen pictures that Hana had shown them, but seeing the actual archivist's station made him understand that this was real. These creatures were not from imagination or dreams. They were real, and they were waiting to judge whether humans deserved to live. Hana led them through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were made of materials that Taejun did not recognize. Some sections had air that felt heavy and thick, and other sections felt light and clean. They passed windows that looked out at the stars and at Earth below. They passed other beings moving through the corridors. Some looked almost human. Others were completely alien. Creatures with multiple limbs. Creatures that seemed to be made of crystal or light. Creatures whose shapes were difficult for human eyes to understand. Some of these beings stared at the humans as they passed. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. Some seemed to look through them as if they did not matter. Taejun realized that many people in this station probably thought that humans were dangerous and should be destroyed. He felt the weight of being a representative of his entire species. Every step he took was not just his own step. It was a step that might lead to the survival or death of everyone he had ever known. The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a great circle, with seats arranged in a rising spiral. Over 50 beings from different species sat in these seats. Some were large, some were small, some seemed to have no fixed shape at all. At the center of the chamber was a platform where Taejun and the other humans were directed to stand. A voice spoke out from above them. It was deep and cold and seemed to come from everywhere at once. The words appeared in Taejun's mind, translated by some kind of system that Hana had attached to his ear. The speaker was a tall, crystalline being made of what looked like diamond and ice. This creature was called Vortek, and it was one of the most powerful members of the council. "We have heard the report of Record Keeper Hana," Vortek said. "We have confirmed that humans still exist on the isolated world. We have read the history. We know that 300 years ago, this species was judged to be too dangerous for the galaxy. We know that they were isolated to protect all other civilizations. The question before us is simple. Should we save them from the temporal fold that is destroying their world, or should we allow them to perish as was intended?" Then came voices from many sides. Some argued that humans should be saved. They said it was wrong to let an entire species die. Others argued that humans were too dangerous and that saving them would be a mistake. One voice, belonging to a creature that looked like a giant insect, said, "Every species we have ever tried to help has become a burden. These humans will be the same. They will breed and expand and cause trouble. It is better to let them die now and save ourselves from future problems." Then Taejun was asked to speak. His heart was beating so hard he could barely hear his own thoughts. He looked at Jiwoo and Dae-sung and Minho. They gave him looks of courage. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "I am Taijin," he said, and his voice was small in the huge chamber, but steady. "I come from a world you thought was dead. I come from a species you thought was gone forever. But we are still here. We are still alive. And I understand why you feared us. I have read in old books about what humans did before the extinction event. We made weapons. We made war. We took things that were not ours. We were not good." He paused. The silence in the chamber was complete. Even Vortex seemed to be listening. But 20 years ago, "Everything changed," Taejun continued. "Everything we had was taken away. Our technology was destroyed. Our comfort was lost. And in that destruction, I think we became better. We learned that we could help each other without technology. We learned that we could survive by working together. We learned that we could find beauty in simple things, in music played on wood and bone, in art made with our hands, in stories told to children in the darkness. I do not say we are perfect. I do not say humans will never make mistakes again. But I say that we can change. I say that we have changed. And I say that destroying us now, after we have learned this, would be a tragedy." Jiwoo spoke next. She talked about the gardens they had created underground, about how humans had learned to grow food without poisoning the earth. Dae-sung talked about how humans had preserved knowledge and continued to build and create even without advanced technology. Minho stood slowly, supported by a walking stick, and he spoke about the responsibility to care for the weak and the young, about how a truly advanced civilization was not one with great technology, but one with great compassion. When they finished speaking, Vortex was silent for a long time. Then the crystalline being said something that seemed to surprise many of the council members. "Perhaps," Vortex said slowly, "I have been wrong about humans. Perhaps isolation was not the right answer. Perhaps we should have tried to help them change instead of trapping them away. What I see before me are not creatures of war and destruction. What I see are beings who have learned wisdom through suffering. I will vote to save them." The council voted. The decision was close, but it was decided that humanity would be saved. They would be evacuated from Earth before the temporal fold collapsed. They would be brought to new worlds where they could begin again. They would be given a chance to prove that they could be members of the galactic community, not enemies of it. As the humans were led out of the council chamber, Taejun looked back at the seats where the decision-makers sat. He realized that his simple, honest words had changed the course of history. The species that everyone had thought was dead was going to be saved after all. The message went out to all human settlements on Earth. Prepare for evacuation. The Archivist Council had voted to save humanity, but time was running short. The temporal fold was becoming more unstable every day. What had seemed like months of safety a few days ago was now measured in weeks. Hana arrived back on Earth with massive transport ships, each one able to hold thousands of people. These ships looked like floating mountains of metal and light. They descended from the sky like gods coming to rescue the world below. Taejun worked without sleeping, without stopping, without allowing himself to rest. He had become the connection between the humans and the archivists. He moved between settlements, helping people understand that they needed to leave everything behind and board the ships. It was not an easy task. Many people did not want to leave. They wanted to stay and die on the world that had given them birth. But Taejun spoke to them about the children. He told them that the children had the right to live. He told them that Earth would always be in their hearts, even if their bodies had to go somewhere else. Jiwoo worked in the loading areas, organizing supplies and making sure that families stayed together when boarding the ships. Dae-sung tried to preserve important things, books, music, art, anything that showed what humans had created and who humans were. Minho became the symbol of hope. The old man walked through the settlements giving speeches, telling people that leaving Earth was not abandonment. It was survival. It was the choice to live so that humanity could have a future. The evacuation was slow at first, then faster. The first ships were filled and rose into the sky. Taijin watched them go with a strange feeling in his chest. He had spent his whole life on this planet. He had never wanted to leave, but as each ship rose upward and disappeared into the clouds, he understood that something necessary was happening. The world that was dying was being reborn in new places and new forms. The temporal fold was indeed breaking apart. Scientists, using Hana's instruments, could measure the instability growing each day. There were strange effects in the sky. The sun seemed to flicker sometimes. Gravity felt different in some places. Time itself seemed to be becoming unstable. People sometimes reported that a few hours would pass feeling like minutes, or that a single minute would stretch and feel like hours. Everyone understood that the end was near. Taijun received a message from Hana. She wanted him to go to one of the last places on Earth, the ruins of Seoul, where he had first encountered her ship. She wanted him to see the place where everything had started before it was lost forever. Taijin did not want to go. It was painful to think about leaving the city where he had spent 20 years alone. But he understood that Hana was right. Some things needed to be said goodbye to. They walked through the empty streets together. The ruins looked different now that most of the humans had left. There was no smoke from fires. There were no people in the streets. The city was truly dead now, returning to silence and emptiness. Taijin showed Hana his small outpost where he had kept supplies. He showed her his collection of books and tools and preserved items. All of it would have to stay behind. They came to the collapsed building where Hana's ship was still hidden. It was time to leave even this place. Hana's crew had already loaded the ship with samples and data and records of human civilization. This outpost had served its purpose. Now, it was time to go. "Do you feel sadness?" Hana asked him as they stood in the basement looking at the alien machine. "Yes," Taijun said, "but I also feel hope. I think I am starting to understand that Earth was not really our home. Our home was with each other. We were just living on Earth. Now we will live somewhere else, but we will still be with each other. That is what matters." Hana nodded. "You have grown very wise in a short time," she said. "I think that this is what humans do. You adapt. You learn. You change. This is why I knew you were worth saving." They rose from Earth one more time. The ship climbed through the atmosphere, leaving the planet below. The temporal fold was visibly breaking apart now. The sky had strange colors, reds and purples and greens that had never been seen before. The ground was shaking. The end was coming, but all the humans had already left. They had managed to evacuate everyone, to bring all of them to safety. The work was complete. In the transport ships that carried millions of humans across space, families held each other. Parents told children that everything would be okay. Elders spoke of the old world and the memories they carried. Young people looked out at the stars and wondered what their new homes would be like. Everywhere on these massive ships, humans were celebrating the fact that they were alive, that they had survived, that their species would continue. The temporal fold collapsed completely exactly 72 hours after the last human had left Earth. From the observation decks of the archivists' space stations, beings from dozens of species watched as Earth's star system was consumed by the collapse. The temporal anomaly had been holding back centuries of time, and when it finally broke, all of that compressed time was released at once. The destruction was swift. The planet Earth was gone, but Earth's people were safe and alive on the transport ships, already traveling to new worlds. Taijin stood on the observation deck of Hana's ship and watched the energy burst fade from the sky. He felt sadness, but he also felt a strange sense of peace. The world that he had known his entire life was gone now, but he was not gone. His people were not gone. They were alive, millions of them, beginning a new chapter in the long story of humanity. Hana stood beside him, her bright eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. She placed her hand on his shoulder in a gesture that humans and this alien race seemed to share. "What will you do now?" she asked him. Tejan thought about this question. He thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the journey from a lonely man in ruins to a representative of his entire species to a witness of humanity's near extinction and salvation. He thought about the future that lay ahead. "Now," he said, "I will help my people find their way in this new universe. I will help bridge the gap between humans and the archivists. I will help make sure that we never forget where we came from. And I will help make sure that humanity becomes something better than what we were before." "Is that possible?" "Yes," Hana said. "I think that is very possible. I think that is what your species does best. You take disasters and transform them into opportunities for growth. You are remarkable, Tejan, and I am honored to have helped save you." They stood together in silence, watching the stars as the first generation of humans to leave Earth sailed forward into an unknown but hopeful future.